Next is, what is the difference between in and into? And similarly, you will understand the difference between upon and on. Now, can you tell me what is the difference between these four? The first is in and into. What is the difference? See, when something is inside and it will move inside only, it cannot go out, then you use in. Inside and will move inside only. That means it will not move out, it will move inside only. Then you can use the word in. But when you talk about in, it says moves and gets in. Into is used when you have something that changes its surface. It will move from one thing and it will enter something else. Then you use into there. For example, if I say, the boy jumped dash the well. Now here you can see we have a well and here is a boy. Now if we say that boy jumped dash the well, he moved from this place and entered the well. That means he moved and gets into something. Which means if something moves and gets in something, we use into there. But if we say, we are in the class. So it means we are in the class, we can move inside the class, but we cannot move out. So in can be used when you are in the closed surface. Next is on and upon. Now on and upon have same difference as in and into. What is there? On, just like in, it is up and at rest. Something is up and at rest, that means it's not moving from there, then you use on. But upon is moves and gets up. Something is there, for example, suppose there's a table here and a cat is here. I know I'm very bad at drawing, please don't mind this, okay? Suppose a cat is here and this cat moves from this place and gets on the table. Now can you tell me what will I place in this sentence? The cat moves from its place and then goes to the table. What happens? The cat jumped dash the table. What should I place here in the sentence? The cat jumped upon the table. Why? Because this cat moved from its place and jumped on the table. That means the surface here changes. That's why. Next is on. Now if I say the table is on the first floor. Now here you can see the table is on the first floor. That means you are defining the position of something and the table cannot move itself. So what we have placed? We have placed on, which is correct. Now the ninth one that we have is, it says improvement in and improvement on. Now, can you tell me what is the difference between these? Improvement in and improvement on. What did I tell you? When we talk about on, there is an improvement on something. That means when we talk about two things and the latter goes better. When we talk about two things and the latter goes better. Latter goes better means if we talk about two things and latter means the thing that comes at the last, that becomes better, then we use what? Improvement on. But when we have only one thing and it improves, then we write improvement in. For example, there is an improvement dash the patient's condition. Now here you can see we have only one thing, and that is patient's condition. And there is an improvement dash it, which means we have only one thing and it is improving. It is increasing. Then what happens is there is an improvement in the patient's condition. But if I say today's price is an improvement dash yesterday's. Now here you can see we have 2 days price given. Today's price and yesterday's price. So what comes after? What comes after? Today come after yesterday. That means the last one that we have is today. And the latter goes better. There is an improvement in the today's price. That means today's price is an improvement on yesterday's. When we have one single thing and it's improving, then we use improvement in. But if we have 2 different things and the latter one, the last one is improving, then we use improvement on. Now next that we have is compared to or compared with. Now if we write compare, that means we are comparing 2 different things, isn't it? Now what is the difference when we place to with it, and what is the difference when we place with it? So if we write to, it compares 2 different things. 2 different things are mentioned, then we use compared to. But when 2 similar things are compared, then we use compared with. Now I'll give you sentences and you'll be able to solve it very easily. Right? If I say the fielding of jaunty roads can be compared dash thunderstorm. One sentence. And you can also say Virat's batting can be compared dash couples. Now in the first sentence you can see one is the fielding of jaunty roads. First thing, fielding. And we are comparing the fielding with thunderstorm, storm that we have. Now there are 2 different things given over here and 2 different things follow compared to. So the correct sentence is the fielding of jaunty roads can be compared to thunderstorm. But in the next sentence you can see first is Virat Kohli's batting and second is Kapil Dev's batting. So both the things are same. Batting and batting are being compared, isn't it? So what we write is Virat's batting can be compared with Kapil's. Next is 11th and it says what is the difference between for and during. Similarly, if I ask you what is the difference between since and from. Why? Because all of these are dependent on time only, isn't it? So if we talk about for or during, if we talk for and during, one subject, and since and from, one subject. So where to place for and during and where to place since and from? When we have what? Imperfect time. Then we use for and during. That means you're not sure about the perfect time. But when we have perfect time, then we use since or from. Now let's discuss the difference between for and during. What is the difference between for and during? Now see, for is used only for period of time. And you're not sure about what period of time you're talking. For 2 hours, for 2 years, for 2 months. Now you're not sure about what 2 months, what 2 hours, or what 2 years are you talking about, isn't it? During is used for happening in the period of time. If we mention a period of time, what happened inside it, that is denoted with during. Fine. Next is since and from. Since is used with part of day, with point of time, with phases of life, and along with this we can also use it with exact time, right? And from is used, moreover, there's one more thing. Since is generally used with past tense, and from is used when you have the starting point of something. Starting point of something. And starting point of something means this is generally used in future tense. Right? Now, let's take some examples. If I say someone works out from 7 to 11, what does it mean? He works out dash 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. Now here you have a perfect time mentioned, 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. That means perfect time is there, isn't it? And you have the starting point of something till the end point, which means starting point is mentioned till the end point, and we use what? He works out from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. Next, if I say he works out dash 3 hours. Now, can you tell me what 3 hours are we talking about? We don't know this, isn't it? So here we cannot write from 3 hours. No. Now here we have an imperfect time, and that imperfect time is a period of time 3 hours, but you're not sure what 3 hours we are talking about. So what we write is he works out for 3 hours. Apart from this, if I say the whole night, what does the whole night mean? It means you have a period of time. And if I say he cried dash the whole night, so something happened in that period of time. What happened? He cried in that period of time. So what we write is he cried during the whole night. So why is during used here? Because it shows that something happened in this period of time. He cried during this period of time. Similarly, if I say he is my friend dash childhood. What does this mean? He is my friend dash childhood. Now childhood is a phase of life. So what we do is he is my friend since childhood. Or if I say I have been teaching dash morning. So morning is what? Part of day. So what we write? She has been teaching since morning, or I have been teaching since morning. Now next is the 13th one, and in this we have in, within, or after. What is the difference between in, within, and after? When I say in, it means by the end of time. What does it mean? By the end of time. That means if I say I will come in a minute. So here in this, you can see in is placed. And in here means before 1 minute ends, I will come. Not before, it can be before or till the end of 1 minute. But if I say within, within always means before the end of time. So if I say I will come within a minute, so there is a difference between two sentences. The first says I'll come in a minute, which means I will come till 1 minute ends. It can be 60 seconds, it can be 50 seconds. But if I say I will come within a minute, now here within means before the end of a minute, which means it says before 60 seconds. It will not complete 60 seconds there. Fine. If I say, I will come after a minute. Now here after means after the end of time. So what is the difference between the three? When we have in says 60 seconds or before. Like it can be till 60 seconds or before it. But when we have within, it will only say before 60 seconds. Which means it will not complete 60 seconds. It can be done in 59 seconds as well. Before 60 seconds. And if I say after, it will only mean after 60 seconds complete. Fine. So there is a difference between when we write in, within or after. In means till that time or before it. Within means only before that time and after means only after that time. Now, the 14th rule says what is the difference between till and by. Now, as you saw the difference between in, within and after, till and by is also related to time only. Fine. When I say till, it means after the time or rather after the given time. Whatever time is mentioned, when we have to talk about after that, then we use till. But when we have by, it means before the given time. So in short, what does till mean? It means whenever you mention a time. In that case, if you have used till, it means after that. And if you have used by with an exact time, then you use before that. For example, I will come till 7 p.m. Or if I say I will come by 7 p.m. So what is the difference between the two? If I say till, it means after 7 p.m. But if I have used by, it means before 7 p.m. Now here we don't talk about the exact time. It's either after or before. Till shows after and by shows before. Next is the 15th one, and it says what is the difference between at and towards. Now, when you have perfect position, that means when you have an aim or you have a point to look at, then you use at. But when you have towards, it means moving in some direction. For example, if I say, I am going to open the door, that means I am moving towards the door, isn't it? But if someone is knocking the door, he is standing at the door. Fine. When we have a point, then what do we use? He is standing at the door. But if I say towards, I am moving towards the door. So when you are in movement, you use towards. When you are at a position, at a point, then you use at. Next is 16th one, and it is the difference between beside or besides. When I say beside, it means next to, which means you are defining a position just next to you. But if I say besides, it means in addition to. When you want to add something that you have already mentioned to, in that condition, what you use is besides. For example, I say, besides teaching English, I can also teach what? Maths. And children, it's just a joke. Don't ever believe that I can teach you maths. Anyway, Besides teaching English, I can also teach you maths. Now, what does here besides mean? What is my profession? To teach you English. And apart from that, in addition to it, I can do one more thing. What? I can teach you maths also. So when we have an additional information to the information that we have already provided, then we use besides. And if I say, I sit beside him, so here it means you sit next to him. Fine. So next defines the position, and besides defines the position, and besides define in addition to something that is given and you want to add something to it. Now next is the 17th one, which says, what is the difference between across and through? Now see, across means from one side to the other. Movement from one side to the other, which means that you have clear boundaries and you have to move from one side to the other. And through means from one end to the other. Now through means that you will go through something. You will enter something and then you will come out to the other end. That is what? Through. For example, if I say, she swims dash the river. Now you know river has two sides, one and the second one. So she will move from one side and go to the other side. That is why we'll place what? Across with it. But if I say, he went dash the woods. So let me tell you, woods here means forest. And he went dash the woods. That means he crossed the jungle. He crossed the forest. He entered the jungle from one end and he came out from the other end. So here we use, he went through the forest or the woods or the jungle. Now next is, what is the difference between in spite and despite? Now see, both mean the same. The meaning of in spite and despite is without being affected. Now if you are not affected by something and you want to write it in a sentence, you can either use in spite or despite. Now what's the difference? There's one difference, that you will use of with in spite but not with despite. One reason, that you don't have any condition like this that you use of with despite. Next thing is, this is very uncommon. If you have a positive point after mentioning in spite, then you use in spite of. But if you have a negative point to say, then you use despite. For example, if I want to say, dash being late, he was allowed to enter the hall. This is one sentence. Dash being late, he was allowed to enter the hall. One sentence. And if I say, dash having a car, he could not make up to that place. Now see, you have two conditions given in the sentences. First is being late and second is having a car. Now do you find anything negative or positive in it? Yes, you can. Someone was late, that means you have a negative point here. And someone had a car, instead of that, he didn't reach that place. That means you have a positive point. But when you have a negative point, what you write is despite. So what we'll write? Despite being late, he was allowed to enter the hall. But when we have a positive point, having a car, which is mentioned here, so what we'll write? In spite of having a car. So this is very uncommon. You must have read in the books that we use of with in spite and not with despite. But there's a difference between the two. What is the difference? When we have a positive point, we use in spite of. If we have a negative point, we use despite there. Now the next is the 19th one, and It is the difference between OF of and OFF of. What is the difference between those? Now see, when we have of given, it will always show the relationship between the two things. But when we have OFF of, this shows the separation. For example, if I say, she fell off the bed, that means she fell off the bed. She was separated from the bed. The relationship between the bed and she got obstructed. So, of is used for the point of separation. Now, if I write, she is a good friend of mine. So, here I need to show the relationship between the good friend and whose good friend is it? Mine. So, of is generally used to show relationship, and this relationship is generally of the ownership of or belonging. For example, if I say the leg of the chair, what does this mean? The leg of the chair means the leg belongs to chair. So, here also of shows relation, and the relationship is of ownership or belongingness. Now, the last preposition that we're going to discuss is what is the difference between before and in front of. What is the difference between these? Now see, when we talk about before is a word which means before the end of something, right? And in front of shows the position. For example, if I say, she came dash me. So what will I say? She came before me or she came in front of me? She came before me. And if I say, she is standing dash me. So where is she standing? This shows the positional relationship. She is standing in front of me. So whenever you have such words or such sentences which have what? Before or in front. So this is the difference between the two words. So let's begin with the rules of prepositions after we have studied some important prepositions. So the first rule for this is, sometimes what happens is we have the subject in the sentence, isn't it? Then we have the verb, and after that we have an object. This is the general structure of a sentence, isn't it? But there are times when we have another verb after the main verb, and this verb is related to the object. In this condition, when you have a verb related to the object, we place a preposition in the end of a sentence. For example, I gave her a pen to write. Now here you can see I is the subject, verb is gave, now the object is her and a pen. And here you have written to write. To write. So this write word is related to, this write verb is related to pen. And when you have a verb related to an object, then you have to place a preposition here. Now if you have a pen here, then what you write is with. Why? Because when I told you that we follow agency functions somewhere, in that condition what happens is we'll place with a countable non-living noun. So that is why I gave her a pen to write with, or I can say I gave her a paper to write. Now here if I write, I cannot say he will write with a paper. We write on a paper. So what we write is on. I gave her a paper to write on, right? Now the second rule that we have is, it says never use a single preposition for two objects. Now see, sometimes it happens that we have a single subject and then we have two objects for the same subject, right? But we place only single preposition with both the objects. That is incorrect. Whenever we have two objects in a single sentence, then we place the preposition with both of them. For example, he has a nature different and inferior to his brother. Right? Now here you can see we are talking about the nature of a person, and what are the qualities mentioned? His nature is different and inferior, isn't it? Now according to inferior, you have placed 2 with it, which is correct because we placed 2 with inferior, but 2 is incorrect according to different, isn't it? So what we need to place is, we need a preposition which is from, because we place from with different. So the correct sentence will be, he has a nature different from and inferior to his brother. Next, if I give you one sentence, it says, he is neither sorry nor ashamed of his mistake. Now in this sentence you can see again we have he is neither. Now we are talking about the subject he, and he is neither sorry nor ashamed of his mistake. Now you have a preposition of which is placed with ashamed, but we cannot place of with sorry, isn't it? What we write is, he is neither sorry for nor ashamed of his mistake. So if we need 2 different prepositions for 2 different objects, we need to place 2 different prepositions. We cannot make a sentence with single prepositions with 2 objects in a sentence. Now the third rule that we have is, it says, never place a preposition with what? With an adverb. With an adverb. You will not place a preposition. For example, if I say, Raju deals with firmly and boldly. Now, can you see this sentence? Raju deals with firmly and boldly. Now, here firmly and boldly are adverbs, isn't it? And we have placed with. Whenever we write with deals, it says we should mention partners after it. Now, are firmly and boldly partners? No, they are not. So, we cannot use with here. Directly the sentence will be Raju deals firmly and boldly. Now the fourth rule that we have is, it says never use a preposition after a transitive verb. Now see, I have already told you about transitive verb, that transitive verbs are the verbs that follow an object with them. And if we have an object, the action performed by the subject affects the object, and if you place a preposition there, it will not be affected. So whenever we have a transitive verb, we cannot write a preposition with it. And what are these transitive verbs? We can take some examples. These are resemble, resist, assemble, enjoy, etc. So if I write a sentence like, he ordered for a plate of rice. So can you tell me this sentence is correct or incorrect? In my opinion, this is incorrect. Why? He ordered for a plate of rice. Do we order a plate of rice or we order for a plate of rice? We cannot order for. If you want to order for, you can order for a person, for me. So if you want to write this sentence, you can write it like this. He ordered a plate of rice for me. Similarly, if I write this sentence, the army attacked upon the enemies. Now here you can see that we have placed attacked and ordered. Both are transitive verbs. We have placed attacked here. Now attack means that you attack upon someone, isn't it? So is there a need of this word upon? There is no requirement. Why? Because if you use upon here, the similar meaning is conveyed by attacked also. So there is no requirement of upon here. So the correct sentence is, the army attacked the enemies. Now the fifth one says use an objective case after a preposition. Now, an objective case of pronoun will be used after a preposition. Now, this was already told to you when you were taught a rule in the chapter of pronouns, right? Now, if I write a sentence like, everything is over for you and I in this village. Will this sentence be correct? Now here you have a preposition over, isn't it? And you have placed you and I. So your you is correct. Why? Because the objective case of you remains you only. But I will be incorrect. What will be placed as me? Everything is over for you and me in this village. Now the last rule of preposition says, do not use a preposition with words expressing time and place. Words expressing time and place, what does this mean? This means if you have any of these words in the sentence, last week, last month, bit, inside, abroad, minute, all these words are there in a sentence in case in that you will not use a preposition with it. For example, now this sentence is very common. Please wait for a minute. And it is incorrect. This sentence is very common, but this is incorrect. Why? See, if you want to wait, you can wait for a person, but not for a minute. So what you do is, we can say, please wait a minute for me. This is the correct sentence, right? Similarly, if I say the president went to abroad. Now, can you tell me what does abroad mean? Abroad means any foreign country, isn't it? And when you are talking about any foreign country and not sure about the particular place, then you cannot write to, because I've already told you to can only be used when you have a perfect place to mention. But here abroad doesn't mean any perfect place. So we cannot write to with it. Instead of abroad, if I write Singapore here, then in that case you can use to with it and it will be correct. The president went to Singapore. But you cannot use what? To or any preposition with the word abroad. So let's begin with the exercise related to the rules and some important prepositions that we have just studied.